Yo, what is up, Broncos country? How's it going tonight, guys? So, me and Muhammad wanted to make this video tonight. We wanted to recap the 2024 NFL season and go over some other news that's, kind of went off here in the last couple of days, with Aaron Jones, the link to the Broncos with him, Mike Purcell retiring, just a bunch of things that we wanted to get into today. Special team coordinator, who that's going to be. And then at the end of the show, we're going to talk about some of the coaches that we've lost, this last couple of weeks. So here we go. So at the beginning of the season, Muhammad, our first game of the season, we played the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Um, you know, Bo's first game as a quarterback in the NFL, and it was kind of a rocky start. Bo Nix, I think in that game he went 26 for 42, 138 yards, and two INTs. Of course, he had the one rushing TD in that game. But his first game, a little rough. The Broncos lost 26-20. Going over that game, what were some things you saw in that game that you actually kind of liked?
Um, Actually, Eddie, like I thought with Bo Nix, like we had so much expectations for him because of all the experience he had in college. So going into that game, I think we were kind of thinking we kind of forgot that he was a rookie too. Like as the game started, and I started seeing certain things. I was like, "Come on, dude, what's going on?" Like with Bo Nix, and I'm like, "He's a rookie, right?" But what I really liked Eddie was like when he was making mistakes, you could tell that it didn't really phase him. If he threw an interception, he's just coming right back at it. He had this fire on him. So that's what I kind of liked. I'm like, this is the quarterback that the Broncos have now. I mean, we finally found the guy. You could tell that he's very confident. He's poised, and like I said, like nothing really phases him. So those are the things that I kind of liked about that game. Him coming back after the interception and playing well towards the end of the game. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, I picked the Broncos. If I remember right, I picked the Broncos to win that game to open the season. But, I think I was just so hyped up about what we saw in preseason with Bo Nix, the fact he got named the starter. I just, I mean, I'm not saying that it was wrong of me that I picked the Broncos to win. They still lost. It was just, his first NFL game. I didn't consider that too much. I was like, he's got the experience. He should be okay. The defense is going to be good. And like, the defense came out firing in that game. I mean, we actually went up, I think 7-0 first or 3-0. Like we were dominating the first part of that game. And as the game went on, it's just the defense started getting wore down. Bo Nix was still trying to learn. He was still struggling a little bit, and the offense
Yeah.
really wasn't moving the ball that well. So, but like I wasn't too upset about it. Like, I mean, even when we lost the game, I was like, yeah, well, he's a rookie. He's gonna learn. Um, Going on to week two, Bo Nix did actually get a little bit better in week two, even though the Broncos still lost. And Bo Nix didn't throw any touchdowns week two against the Steelers. He threw two INTs again, but he went 25 or 20 for 35 for 246 yards. So he got 100 more yards in his next game. And watching that game to me personally, the Steelers game from week one to week two, you could just tell Bo Nix was like, okay, he had the one interception that he threw the first one, that was terrible. They were inside the 10-yard line, and he just threw into, I think it was like double coverage, bad interception. But the second one he threw, it was pretty much, just like a Hail Mary, hey, we're down. We need to try to make a comeback here. He just threw it down the middle of the field, and the guy just came out of nowhere and just picked it off. Like that second interception, I really don't care about because, he was just trying to make a play with like, I think it was like a minute left to go in the game. Um, but I saw progression from week one to week two, from the Seahawks to the Steelers. What about you, Mohammed?
Yeah, I would say the same thing, Eddie. Like you could tell that what Sean Payton was saying about him. If he makes a mistake once, he's not gonna make it again. You know, you could tell that he's learning. Oh, okay, so this was an interception. I'm not gonna do the same thing again. Just the progress. You could tell from one game to until the last game on the season. You could tell that Bo Nix is always just learning, and it's what the coaches were saying about him was true, Eddie. Um, Too bad we didn't win that game, but I agree with you. You could see the progress, one game to another.
Yeah, definitely. Like you saw when you saw Bo Nix make a mistake, you didn't see him make it again. Like he would make a mistake, like, oh, okay, I threw this route whenever I shouldn't. I should have took this route. If they ever had that play again, and they did do that, they would run the same play sometimes, just different concepts, different looks. But Bo Nix showed like, hey, I'm not going to make that same mistake. Yeah, I'm going to see that safety come down, or I'm going to see that linebacker go up, and I'm not going to make that throw. I'm going to throw it to the out, or I'm going to throw it to the flat, or whatever, or to the other side of the field on the seam route. So that was Bo Nix showed progress. Uh, and as we said, both those first two games were losses, and Bronco fans were sitting there at. I mean, even though we knew Bo Nix was a rookie and it was going to take some time for him to get acclimated to the NFL game speed, like people, I remember after week 2 when we lost to the Steelers, people were starting to like kind of freak out a little bit. They're like, "Oh my God, what is?" Like, Bo Nix had 4 interceptions, no passing touchdowns. He had 1 rushing touchdown. People are like, "Oh my God, what are we going to do? Is Bo Nix the guy?" Like I remember seeing those conversations online. Like Bo Nix is not the guy. And I'm just like, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, are you crazy? Like he's still a rookie,
Yeah,
in his first 2 games. And if you just watch the game and see the, small things, he was doing the small things right and he was progressing. He wouldn't make the same mistake twice. And I'm just like, people were freaking out about it. So then comes week 3. We're on the road, because the first game we were in Seattle, second game we were at home here in Denver against the Steelers. Then we go on the road to Tampa Bay to play the Bucks, down there. And at that time, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were hot. Like they were 2-0, but Baker Mayfield was looking really good. People were, and I remember I think I might have counted this game as a loss just because of how good the Bucks were at that time and their defense and Bo Nix still struggling. And so Bo Nix in that game doesn't throw any touchdowns. I think he had 1 rushing touchdown, or maybe 2. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was 1. The first touchdown they scored, it was him. He bootleg to the outside and he just runs in. But Bo Nix, again, you know, improvement from week 2 to week 3. He 25 for 36, 216 yards, so a little less yards, but he had no INTs that game. He had no turnovers. Big progress, in my opinion. Your first 2 games, you throw 2 interceptions. Third game, you don't throw any interceptions, and what happens? The Broncos win. What are your thoughts on that game, Mohammed?
Eddie. That see because of the previous 2 games, I did not see us beating the Buccaneers. That's not something I expected. And I remember I don't know what was going on with me that day, but I didn't really watch the first a few minutes, I guess, of the game. So when I turned it on, the Broncos are already scored 14 points. I'm like, what in the world happened, right? It was a surprise to me, Eddie. Like, but yeah, I mean, that was that first game where you could start seeing that okay, the Broncos are for real because of who they beat, right? I mean, even the
Yeah.
NFL knows, and you could just tell that um, Bo Nix is just getting comfortable. This is his third game. He's learning, he's kind of getting used to, I guess, the wide receivers that he was playing with. So yeah, I mean, you could tell about the progress.
Yeah, definitely. I like when we got that win, I was so happy. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I can't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure I picked us to lose that game because I was like, we're on the road. The Bucks, to me at that time, overall, like team wise, they were just better. Like they had a better record. They were playing a lot better than the Steelers or the Seahawks were. So I was just like, yeah, we're gonna lose this game. But I'm happy they proved me wrong on that. Well, from week 3 to week 4, we know earlier in the year from the because they were in Tampa Bay week 3. Week 4, they had to go to New York and play the Giants. And a lot of people, including national media pundits, were like, "What are the Broncos doing? This is insane." Because remember, they stayed out on the East Coast. I believe they stayed in Virginia for that week, to just stay out there, to stay on the East Coast. It was going to be kind of silly to drop, fly all the way back to Denver, practice for the week, and have to fly all the way back out to the East Coast just to play the Jets again. So they stayed out in Virginia for that week, And a lot of people were crucifying, including Bronco fans, crucifying Sean Payton, saying, "What are you doing? Like, yeah, you got back-to-back road games, but why wouldn't you come home? Why are you staying on the road? That makes no sense." But Sean Payton proved himself right because the Broncos got a win there, 10-9. Now it was a bad game for the offense. I'm not gonna lie. Like Bo Nix went 12 for 25, 60 yards and a touchdown. Like I remember at like halftime in that game, he had like negative passing yards.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like Sean Payton with the offense was just trying to play it safe because they were playing during that storm, that hurricane-ish type of weather. So they weren't really, Sean Payton was doing a lot of screens, a lot of short, behind the line of scrimmage kind of passes, because he didn't want Bo Nix to make any mistakes. It seemed like he was still trying to protect him at that point. And we're just sitting here, I remember me and you, Muhammad, we were talking about it. We're like, dude, just go for it. Like, you literally are playing with house money this season anyway. Don't be scared. Just go for it. Like, stop, trying to protect Bo Nix and just let him off the leash. I remember us both saying that. But in the end, once again, to me, it was more progression. Yes, he only threw for 60 yards, but he got his first passing touchdown and did not turn the ball over that game.
Yeah.
Bo Nix did.
That was
and the Broncos won. In New York, back-to-back road games. Boom, boom. They win on the East Coast, and they are now 2-2. And it was a good game. Like, I mean, I shouldn't say it was a good game. It was actually a horrible game. Like for the offenses in general, for both sides, for the Jets and the Broncos, because of the weather. But what was your reaction to that game, Mohammed?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually kind of surprised when Sean Payton did that and kept the Broncos on the East Coast, because not because I thought there was anything wrong with it. It's just never been done before. I don't believe a team did that before, And Sean Payton just got to be Sean Payton with his stuff. But yeah, it was like, I mean, honestly, Eddie, like it could have went either way because, like you said, both offenses did not play well. I'm glad we came out winning in the end, but it was terrible by both teams.
Yeah, that game was terrible. That was probably the worst game of the year, like for us. I mean, maybe in the NFL, I don't know. I had to go back and look at all the games in the season, but actually, I think there was a Thursday night game between the Bears and somebody else. Like I think the Falcons, maybe. That was just downright. It was a Thursday night game, middle of the season. It was just a terrible game. Like neither team could score touchdowns. It was a terrible game. But anyway, moving on to week 5. To me, week 5 was Knicks' breakout game. This is where Knicks broke out and was like, hey, NFL, everybody, I'm here. I'm an NFL starting caliber quarterback. Watch me shine. I believe it was week 5 here in Denver. We faced the Las Vegas Raiders and we dominated them. I mean, the final score was 34-18, but if you watch that game, we were dominating them before that. They got like a garbage time touchdown. They got two. I'm pretty sure the Raiders got a touchdown somewhere in like the beginning of the second half. Then 2-point conversion. Then towards the end of the game, with like 5 minutes or less left, they got another touchdown, another 2-point conversion to make it. Or maybe I can't remember off the top of my head how it went, but it was 18-34. The Broncos dominated that game. To me, that was the game that Bo Nix broke out. I mean, that was the game where Patrick Surtain had that big 100-yard pick six that turned the tide in that game. But Bo Nix, this is where he kind of broke out to me. This was his breakout game. Yeah, the stats might not be, great, but if you watch that game, you saw Bo Nix ball in that game. But he went 19 for 27, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. What were your thoughts on that game, Mohammed?
Yeah, that was his, I guess, coming out party, right? He looked extremely comfortable. Anytime, of course, we beat the Raiders, I'm going to be excited. We finally beat them after all these years. But yeah, you could tell that, Eddie, like speaking of like Sean Payton, like remember we were kind of like saying, what was Sean Payton doing? Sean Payton had Onyx in the center, and he was just changing the scene around him. You know how he was doing different personnels, and we're getting
Yeah,
frustrated. There was something in his mind, like he came with the plan as far as how he's gonna, I guess, get Bo Nix ready for the NFL. You know, and hey, he it worked, Eddie. Whatever he did, it worked. You know, it really helped Bo Nix. But going back to the game, it did help him a lot. I could, you could tell that Bo Nix was getting really comfortable. We just dominated. That was a really nice win.
yeah, that was the win that make us feel good. Now, yes, it was against the Raiders, who are literally one of the worst teams in the NFL this past year. But it was a division rival. Made Bronco fans feel good. We finally broke that streak of losing to the Raiders for the past 4 or 5 years. So it was a good win. We not only won, we dominated. So the dominating win, beating the Raiders for the first time in 5 years. Bo Nix's coming out party, and beating a division rival, all that stuff together just made that win so much sweeter. Um, but so after week 5, we were sitting at 3-2, looking pretty good. Then, of course, all good things must come to an end at some point. We're riding high after that Raiders win. So then we get the Chargers come into Denver. The first game where Harbaugh, coaches in Denver against the Broncos. Um, Now we lost that game 23-16, and honestly, it was just I don't know what it was. I think just Harbaugh honestly outcoached Sean Payton in that game. But Bo Nix stat line still kind of looked the same. 19 for 33, 216 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an and pick another, or he had a pick in that game. So, and actually, that was like towards the beginning of the game, if I remember correctly. He just threw a bad ball over the middle and it got picked. Like he just read the defense wrong and it got picked off, which rookie still going to happen. Like as long as he's, either staying the same or at least progressing, he's not going backwards, I'm fine with. He made one bad read, and for rookies, that's going to happen throughout the season. But for me, that game, I was just like, man, I really wanted to beat the Chargers. And it just didn't happen. And I was like, that sucks. But, we're still above 500. I was happy being 3-3. It sucked to lose to the Chargers, but what were your feelings about that game, Mohammed?
Yeah, I mean, I expected us to kind of lose. Like the first, for whatever reason, the Chargers just scared me. Whenever they hired Harbaugh, like I was thinking that they're going to be tough. They have the quarterback now. They have the coach. You know, sort of expected us to lose. And I know, Bo Nix actually threw that interception. I remember what you're talking about, but like I said, he's a rookie. He was like expected, and I remember what Broncos country was saying. Most people were saying all these negative things about him and stuff at that time. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of one of the games that I thought we were going to lose, so it wasn't a surprise for me.
Yeah, I can't remember if I picked the Broncos to win that game or if I picked them to lose. I want to say I picked them to win because I was like, with Harbaugh, I was like, yeah, it's probably going to be a little harder than previous years because they always, the previous years they had Staley, who was a garbage head coach and just kept holding them back. I'm like, if we're going to beat the Chargers this year, we're going to have to do it in Denver. So I picked them to win that game. But, so we're sitting at 3-3. So going to, I think it's week 7, we go down to Sean Payton's old home. And I was like, this game is going to be a win. I picked it. I was like, it's going to be 100% win. We're going to probably blow these cats out because Sean Payton's going to want to put his stamp down. He's going to put his foot down. Like, I'm not going to get beat by my old team, the New Orleans Saints. Now, it also helped the fact that the Saints at that time at that point in the season, they were riddled with injuries. I mean, all their big start, like I think Kamara was out, Derek Carr was out. I think their top corner was out. Like their top 2 receivers are out. Like everybody for the Saints was out. I'm like, this, like, not only is this a must win for Sean Payton to prove that, hey, New Orleans, well, I mean, they didn't fire him. He moved on, but he wasn't going to lose to his old team. And the fact that they were riddled with injuries, it's like the Broncos better win this game. So if they don't, that's going to be terrible.
Exactly.
The Broncos didn't just win. They dominated 33-10 against the New Orleans Saints. And this game to me, I wouldn't say a complete full game, but from both sides of the ball, the defense just dominated the line of scrimmage and dominated the Saints offense. Cody Barton had a pick. I think he had another one that was swatted, or he swatted the quarterback, became a fumble, and we scooped it up. Like I said, Barton had a pick six. And then the run game, like this was the one game I think where Javonte actually shined out this entire year because the Saints run defense is like the worst in the league. They were atrocious. Javonte went off for 14 carries for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. Bo Nix went 16 for 26, 164 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. They really didn't need Bo Nix to play quarterback. Like, it's like, Sean, don't be cute. If you really want to beat your old team, especially when they're riddled with injuries, knowing that their pass defense was better than their run defense, but their defense as a whole is still garbage. But it's like, just run the ball. Just boom, boom, boom. Make it easy. Give Bo Nix a break or just give him, kind of an easy game where he can maybe work on some stuff. And I think that's kind of what they did because, like I said, 164 yards, no touchdowns, no INTs. What were your thoughts of this game, Mohammed?
Yeah, in that game, I thought the Broncos were going to win, not in that fashion. I think the defense was kind of like the highlight of that game. With the interception, the sacks, and the scoops, all that, just complete domination. And I know Sean Payton was happy about it because that's probably one of the games he circled in there. So yeah.
Oh, I agree. That was. I mean, I knew. I'm not going to say Sean Payton knew they were going to make the playoffs this year, but to me, regular season wise, this was Sean Payton's Super Bowl for him. Like, this was the game where he was like, I got circled on my damn calendar that we are going to win this game. So, but moving on. So right now the Broncos are sitting at 4-3. We're above 500 midway through the season. We're going into week 8. We go up against the Carolina Panthers. In that game, we won by 2 touchdowns. It was 28-14. But if you watch the game, like, we dominated that game. That game realistically should probably have been like 6-28 or 6-30 something. Like, we dominated the Panthers. And Bo Nix, another great game. This was actually his best game by far at this point in the season. Went 28 for 37, 284 yards, and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, Bo Nix had a hell of a game that day. And, the one pass I remember from that game that's still tattooed in my brain was the pass, I think it was from like 23, 24 yards out. He just dimed it down the seam to Adam Troutman for a one-handed catch in the end zone. I was like, okay, yeah, that's the quarterback of the future. I don't need to say anymore.
Yeah.
But what were your thoughts on that game, Mohammed?
I remember exactly the throw you're talking about. That was like a pro, like an NFL pro pass, definitely. You could tell that he's getting comfortable. Like I said, he's getting used to playing in the NFL and just the progress continuing to take place. And it was right after that Saints game, so you could tell that, okay, so we won this game, and this is the game after. There wasn't any regression. We were just kind of continuing to win. So definitely, Eddie, that was a good win in our part.
I loved it. It was so much fun. Like I said, that pass at that point in the year. I mean, there was a pass better than that, but it was later in the season. You know which one I'm talking about. But that pass at that time was the best pass that Bo Nix had all year at that point. But moving on, at that point, I think after week 8, we were sitting at 5-3. We're 2 games above 500. I think at that time we were the 3rd or 2nd in the division. And then we run into a buzzsaw. We run into the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. And that game to me was like that wasn't me. That game wasn't like, oh, this team is bad. That to me, that game proved one thing to me. That game proved that this team severely lacks talent at receiver, running back, tight end. Heck, I can even say pass rusher. Like not Vic Fangio. I don't know why I said that. But Vince Joseph just didn't know how to stop Lamar Jackson running the ball. Like, it just seemed like he just didn't know what the heck to do. But Bo Nix in that game went 19-33, 223 yards, no passing touchdowns, 1 INT. But He did catch his first career touchdown in that game. The only touchdown the Broncos scored in that game, Sutton to Nix in the end zone. What were your thoughts on that game, Mohammed?
Yeah, I knew that going to Baltimore that was going to be a hard game. I didn't really see us winning, Eddie, but I didn't think we were going to get beat that bad. You know, it did hurt a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, Eddie. But yeah, you could take some positive from that game. The fact that he finally threw his first, touchdown. Now the thing with the Ravens, Eddie, going back to your point, it's because you actually see how talented that team is, and then you compare it to the Broncos, it just shows. It's the same thing when we played the Bills on the playoffs. You could tell that the big difference. It's not really the play. It's just we just don't have that talent.
No, we didn't. And it just, I mean, I would like what I mean, I didn't expect the Broncos to win. I picked them to lose that game, but I was at least hoping it would be a little closer.
Oh yeah,
But like I said, that to me just showed the lack of talent on this roster. And that to me just, I mean, that's a good problem to have, though. I mean, you got the head coaching solved, you got the ownership solved, you got the GM solved, you got the quarterback solved. You just got to go out and put talent on this roster and good pieces on this roster, and you can compete with teams like Baltimore.
yeah,
So it's a good problem to have. But this next game, now after the Baltimore game, the Broncos were sitting at 5-4. This next game ticked me off, and you know the reasons why. There's two reasons why this game's ticked me off. Actually, three reasons I should say. And I have to say it, but the Kansas City Chiefs. We played the Chiefs. I think it was week 10 in Kansas City. The Broncos should have freaking won that game.
yeah.
Now, the Broncos outplayed the Chiefs. Bo Nix outplayed Patrick Mahomes. It was just once again the lack of talent showed. We went up 14-0 in that game against the Chiefs. We went up 14-0 against the Chiefs at one point. And if it wasn't for a blocked freaking field goal because the left side of the line just completely collapsed, we would have handed KC their first loss of the season. That to me was just like, oh my God. Another game where Kansas City got so freaking lucky to win. And it made me physically sick. But in that game, Bo Nix went 22 for 30, 215 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like I said, he outplayed Patrick Mahomes in that game. The Broncos outplayed the Chiefs. It was just literally one boneheaded freaking mistake by the left side of the special teams field goal unit just completely collapsed. Mostly Alex Forsythe collapsed and gave the Chiefs the game. What were your thoughts to that game?
Yeah, Eddie. Thanks for bringing that back, by the way, to my memory. I mean, the Broncos were the better team on that game. I mean, that's what it was. But yeah, Eddie. I mean, what happened in the end? I didn't. I thought we won. Like I was just ready to celebrate the win. And I'm just looking at it. I couldn't quite believe what I was looking at. You know, maybe that's why the special team coordinator got fired. I don't know. And
It
I
was
see,
just,
Eddie, you actually said something about it. You said, imagine if we go and we beat Kansas City and hand them their first loss. How sweet that would be. It almost happened.
I'm telling you, like, if we get talent on this team, dude, we're going to be dangerous next year. Like, we're going to be competing with a lot of good teams next year. Like, I'm not even worried about that. Like, we put a tight end one, a running back one, another elite receiver on this roster, dude. We're these juggernaut teams like the Bills, the Chiefs, the Ravens, maybe you could say even the Chargers, the Bengals. Like, we're going to be competing with these guys next year easily. But after that game, the Broncos were sitting at 5-5. Here comes week 11, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I went to this game and I had a blast. Like I just it was a fun game, but the Broncos dominated. Like they rebounded in a big way in that game after coming off that horrible loss, which past Broncos teams after a loss like that to the Chiefs in past years would have just collapsed the rest of the year. They would have been like, oh, there goes all the air out of the sail. We're done. Nope. They came back with a freaking vengeance in week 11 against the Falcons, 38-6. They beat them by 32 points. Um, it was a great win. They dominated every aspect, special teams, defense, offense. They dominated that entire game. This was probably Bo Nix's best game of the season, in my opinion. Bo Nix went 28 for 33, 307 yards, and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. This, to me, was Bo Nix's best game. And this, to me, shows what Bo Nix and this offense can do if they have the talent on the roster. And, man, if there was ever a game for somebody to go to this year, it was that Falcons game. Like I said, that was probably the Broncos' best win of the season. What were your thoughts to that game, Mohammed?
Absolutely, Eddie. I agree with you. It was basically Bo Nix telling the NFL, "Hey, I'm here to stay. This is my team, and this is what we could do." Like he put the NFL in notice. I think even Broncos country, even people who had doubts about him, just telling them that, "Hey, this is what I can do." Um, it was a great win for the Broncos, and I think it was like more like a response to the loss that they were handed by the Ravens too. So that's probably what it was too, Eddie. So yeah, it was a a really good win. I need to go back and
Yeah,
watch the highlights. Got me excited about it.
and it was a good game, man. Like I had, it was so much fun to watch and just see Bo Nix go out there and light the freaking sky on fire. It was amazing. But going to the next week, week 12, we're sitting at 6-5 now. The Broncos go up against again the Raiders, this time in Las Vegas. Now, this was another record, or I'm sorry, a streak that ended. The Broncos haven't beaten Vegas in their home stadium, I think since 2019, since they were the Oakland Raiders, was the last time we beat them in their stadium. But anyway, the Broncos win 29-19. It was a good game. It was a dominating game. Like the Broncos had defense had a good day, held the Raiders under 20 points. Bo Nix went for 25 of 42, 273 yards, and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Broncos winning another game. They're sitting at 7-5 now, feeling good. What was your reaction to that game? Like, it was a fun game to watch.
Yeah, I remember the beginning of the game kind of scared me a little bit because the Broncos weren't. I don't know. They were allowing the Raiders to score and just move, run the ball, do all kind of crazy stuff. They did come back and they won the game, and we swept the Raiders. So I was happy about that. Not once, twice. Like we beat them twice in the same season. So yeah, man, that was a really good game, definitely.
Yeah, it was a fun game to watch. Like swept the Raiders for the first time in years. Ended 2 streaks, beating them in their home stadium and beating them in general. Like we ended 2 streaks this year. Like last year, 2023, we ended the streak of losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. This year we ended 4 streaks. We ended the like I said, the losing to the Raiders in their building, having a winning record and making the playoffs. We won 5 streaks in the past 2 years. This team is, like I said, and once they get talent on this team's going to be a lot more deadly, and they're going to probably be bringing more streaks. Like, oh, they made the playoffs, but now we're going to make the divisional. Then we're going to make the conference championship and possibly win a Super Bowl. I do believe in these next 5 years, the Broncos will win a Super Bowl with Bo Nix and Sean Payton. I do. But moving on to the next week, I think this was week, 12 or 13. No, this is week 13. My apologies. Week 13, Monday Night Football. The Browns came to Denver. Boy, was this game freaking yeah, it was too close for my taste personally, but this was what, whenever you think of Thursday night, Monday night, Sunday Night Football, this is the kind of game you picture. Basically a shootout. Like people want to talk about, oh, I love watching defense. I love watching defense. I do. But people pay to go to these games and watch them on TV because they want to see the offense and the quarterbacks put up points. That's what makes the NFL so fun is watching the offense and the team put up a buttload of points. Broncos 41, the Browns 32. This was a great game. Now, yes, 2 of those touchdowns, 2 of those, or 14 of those 41 points came off the back of a defense because of 2 pick sixes that Jameis Winston threw.
Mhm.
But, Bo Nix, I mean, he had an, he had an game, I guess you could say. He went 18 for 35, 294 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. But what made this game really great for Bo Nix, for me personally, was the best throw in Bo Nix's NFL career. I think they were on like the 4 or 5 yard line. Bo Nix drops back, sitting in his own end zone, delivers a dime like 25, 30 yards downfield to, a tightly covered, or at least into a tight window to a Marvin Mims who goes off for a 90-something yard touchdown. Best play of Bo Nix's career by far. This game had everything. The high scoring offense. I mean, our defense had 2 pick sixes, but they did give up 32 points in this game. But they had 2 pick sixes. Bo Nix had the best throw of his career. High scoring Monday Night Football game. What was your just feeling to this game, Mohammed?
Eddie, that throw. I mean, it's not just how he threw it, Eddie. It's the fact that Sean Payton trusts him to do that, Eddie. There was 2 defenders. I thought,
3.
honestly, looking at it, I was like, "That's an interception. That's an interception." Got it. Yeah.
There were 3 defenders because I think or Ward, or what's his name? Their best corner. I forgot his name. Like the 2 safeties came, or no, it was the middle linebacker, 1 safety, and then Ward, the corner, came over. He was the one that you saw dive and tried to stop it. He just couldn't get it. So there was 3 defenders back there, and he fit it into a window like this small. Bo Nix did.
But I mean, Eddie,
Best
think
throw
about
right
it.
there in
If the
history.
NFL knew that Bo Nix could actually make throws like this, we're
Well,
so
now we
lucky,
do.
Eddie. Yeah.
Now we
How
do.
lucky we got. Yeah.
But
That was actually when we actually saw Mims actually coming out, and
oh yeah, definitely. But at that point, the Broncos are sitting, I believe, at 8-5. The Broncos are 8-5, 3 games above 500. They're 2 wins away, or actually, if you want to say 1 win away from their first winning season. 2 wins away from having, double-digit wins in a season and possibly making the playoffs. So after week 13, week 14, we're on our bye. Broncos country and the Broncos themselves, everybody's riding high here in Denver. Everybody in the locker room, on the team, they're riding high. We're like, we're 8-5. We're on our bye week. We come out. We should be playing with our hair on fire. We got a reason. We're actually in the thick of the playoff hunt. We were still sitting at that time. We were sitting in the playoff picture at the 7th seed, or maybe we were at the 6th seed. I can't remember off the top of my head. But so we have a week 14 bye. Coming out of that week 14 bye, we're in week 15. We're hosting the Indianapolis Colts. And I said this at the time. This was the Broncos' biggest game. This was their Super Bowl of the season right here. At that point, this was their biggest game of the season because the Colts were right there in the thick of the playoff hunt too. And they're one of the teams that the Broncos were competing against for that final wild card seed. And I'm like, the Broncos have to beat these guys. If they want any shot at the playoffs, they have to beat the Indianapolis Colts. Not only did the Broncos beat the Indianapolis Colts, they freaking destroyed them 31-13. They dominated that game. They made Anthony Richardson look like a freaking high school quarterback out there. But Bo Nix in that game, I mean, his stats, I'll read them off to you. 20 for 33, 130 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he also had 3 INTs in that game. Wasn't his greatest game, but he did enough to help the team win. And honestly, to me, I want to get your take on this, Mom, because I think you'll agree with me on this. The play of that game, the biggest play of that game was, I mean, they call it a fumble and a scoop and score, but It was a pick six. Nick Benito.
Benito.
They tried to run this little trickery play. Anthony Richardson throws it to the receiver. The receiver tries to throw it back to Anthony Richardson. You see Benito just to me, whenever I watched it live, it was like slow motion. You just see Benito like this. Just slow motion is what it looked like to me. He grabs it, takes it to the house. Great game. What were your thoughts of that game, Mohammed?
Yeah, Eddie. Like, to be honest with you, that game kind of like made me a little nervous, Eddie, because of the implications that it had on the playoffs and all that. I thought we would pull it off, just didn't think we were gonna beat them that way. But that thing with Nick Benito, Eddie, I didn't see it coming. Like, I'm like, what can this guy do? Seriously, like the sacks, and he's very intelligent, very smart. He was watching the quarterback. He was like a corner or a linebacker out there. Yeah. Do you remember what's his name? Sartano was like, oh my god. Oh, remember Eddie?
Yeah.
Like
They had him mic'd up. They
exactly.
had, I think that week Sertan was mic'd up, and you just hear him screaming, "Oh
like,
my god!"
this is funny. Like nobody. Yeah.
That,
Good
that,
stuff,
that
Eddie.
was that was fun. That was a good game. But after that game, the Broncos are sitting at 9-5. The Broncos finally, for the first time in years, have clinched their first winning season. So at this point, if the Broncos even lose out the rest of the year, they're going to have a winning record. But then we run into another, I guess you could say, kind of a buzzsaw in the Chargers. Have them like, and honestly, the second game against the Chargers here, the one we played them at in LA, honestly, that game was closer, and it felt like the Broncos had more, like, because they were up early in that game. The Broncos took an early lead. I think they were like up 14-0 at one point in the first half. Like, you're thinking, okay, the Broncos got this. We're going to beat the Chargers. And then I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was the defense or the offense just kind of started imploding. I mean, the final score was 34-27. They beat us by a touchdown. But Bo Nix in that game went off for 29 for 40, 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. The Broncos should have won that game. Like I said, they were up early. They were dominating. I think at one point they were even up 21-7. Like, the Broncos should have won that game. It was like, I don't know if they took their foot off the gas or if they just had a mid-game collapse, but the Broncos should have won that game. But, after that game, they were sitting at 9-6. What were your thoughts to that, Mohammed?
Yeah, Eddie. Like that game, I think we beat ourselves. I don't even think the Chargers beat us. Like we just did not finish the right way. You got swept by the Chargers, Eddie. That was not a good thing, but is what it is, I guess.
Well, before the season started, if someone came up to you, Mohammed, and said, listen, you're going to sweep the Raiders, but then you're going to get swept by the Chargers, would you have taken that?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think in the past, like, we've always split with the Chargers. Like, we would split with the Chargers 1-1, but then we would get swept by the Raiders the last 5 years. And then before last year, we were getting swept by the Chiefs. So, yeah, I would have took the same thing. I'd sweep the Raiders, get swept by the Chargers because they're still a good team. They got Jim Harbaugh now. And honestly, I think this team, once again, just needs to put more weapons on this roster because I'm going to say it now, and a lot of people are probably going to disagree. Bo Nix is going to be better than Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, I like him, but the guy can't perform in big games. He can't do it. He's had 2 playoff games, and he gets bounced each time. And whenever he needs to make a big play, he usually can't. So just give
Eddie,
it a few
like
more years.
nobody can beat him if he has the talent in his team. He can he can beat any coach, I think.
Oh,
Just gotta give him
I'm just saying, give it a few years. Bo Nix will be better than Justin Herbert. I'll put money on it.
the ceiling.
So,
yeah.
But so at that point, the Broncos, like I said, are sitting at, I think, 9-6. Next week, and this game was actually really good. I mean, I had some problems with it, mostly coaching. But the Broncos go into Cincinnati and play the Bengals, and that was a good freaking game. Like I think we struck first, and the Bengals came back and tied it, and they went up. But then we kept up with them. It was like 7-7. Then the Bengals go up 14-7. The Broncos strike back with that deep pass from Bo Nix to Marvin Mims down the field, 14-14. And then the Bengals go down. They score. They go up. I think it was it 21 or something like that. 21 or whatever. And the Broncos come back. They kept it close. Bo Nix for that went 24 of 31, 219 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT. And then Bo Nix, the game, 4th and 1, 13 seconds left to go in the game. We're down 24 to, I think was it 24-17, I believe it was. We were down. And Bo Nix just throws up a prayer. Marvin Mims, boom, in the end zone with time expiring, catches the ball. We go to overtime. Now, my problem with that game was the play calling. Like, you go to overtime, tied 24 all. The Bengals get the ball first. You stop them. You stop Joe Burrow. You get the ball back. Sean Payton's play calling sequence on those last 2 drives in overtime just had me sitting here like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to go for the kill? Stop running the ball. It's like earlier in the year when Bo Nix is struggling, we're screaming at you to run the ball to help Bo Nix. But you're like, no, I'm going to keep Bo Nix out there slinging the ball. And then whenever you should be aggressive, they're stopping the run. Like they're blocking up. You don't have a run game. They're stopping the run. It's like, if any time to let Bo Nix throw the ball, do it now. Even if you lose, go for the kill shot. 2 drives. Sean Payton's like, run, pass. And you're like, what the heck, man? But the Broncos lose that game in overtime, 30-24. What was your whole thing with that game? Because mine was I was like, Sean come
Payton
on.
just he's sometimes he kind of outsmarts himself. Just, if that makes any sense to you.
It does, but it's aggravating.
Because we should have won.
Yeah, we should have won. We stopped them twice in overtime. And Sean Payton's like, run, pass. It's like, dude, like I said again, earlier in the season, when Bo Nix was struggling to throw the ball in his first 2 games, we're yelling at him to run the damn thing to help Bo Nix out a little. We've been screaming about the run game all season. We're like, we need a running back. We don't have one. And then the one time you're like, you got Broncos country behind you. Like, okay, Sean, you know what you're doing. Bo Nix is slinging it. Do it now. Sling the freaking thing. Go for the kill shot. Like, you literally have nothing to lose. You're going to at least have a winning season. Like, knock the Bengals out. Because if you beat the Bengals there, you take out 2 of your biggest foes. The Broncos still made the playoffs. So I can't really fault him too much. But, like, say the Broncos would have lost week 18 to Kansas City. You literally just gave a freaking easy access for the Bengals to make the playoffs. So, it worked out in our favor, but, like, you were competing with the Bengals. You should have been freaking slinging that thing in overtime. Stop being scared, Sean. So, but after that, the Broncos were sitting at 9-7, going into our final game of the season. And, a lot of people are going to talk, it was a Chiefs backups, this, that. I don't give a damn. These guys are still NFL players. They still get paid. Even if Andy Reid was coaching to, not get hurt, it doesn't matter. Those guys out there on the team, like, they don't give a crap. They still want to make a name for themselves because a lot of those guys are going to be free agents this year, and they got to put good tape out there for teams. They have to. But in Week 18, this was probably Bo Nix's. Honestly, this was probably his best game. But I'm going to go with the game earlier in the season where he threw 4 touchdowns and an interception. I can't remember what game that was off the top of my head now. But Bo Nix went 26 for 29, 321 yards, and 4 TDs. It was against the Chiefs backups, but it doesn't matter. He still dominated. The Broncos win 38-0, go 10-7, clinch their first playoff spot in 9 years. What was your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, that game was something else. I kind of figured we were gonna win because it was against the backups, Eddie, but not in that fashion. They couldn't even score 1 point. I know Andy Reid was pissed off. That's besides the point. But yeah, it was just a complete domination, like all phases, And that guaranteed that we were going to the playoffs. What else can you ask the Broncos to do?
Yeah, you got to win the games they put out in front of you. You got to beat the team they put out there on the field. Like, if the Broncos, like, people want to say, oh, it was against the Chiefs back. Okay, so if the Broncos would have lost that game, what would the saying have been? the Broncos starters couldn't even beat the Chiefs backups that weren't even trying. Like, imagine the freaking talking points if that were the case. And them losing to the Chiefs backups prevented them from going to the playoffs. Like, so what? You sit here and say, oh, well, it's just against the Chiefs backups. Yeah, but if they would have lost, it would have been 10 times worse.
Yeah.
10 times worse. But so the Broncos clinched the playoffs. They made their first playoff appearance since 2015 against the Buffalo Bills. Of course, we get dominated. Like early in that game, it looked great. You know, the Broncos' first series, you know, they marched down the field, big pass to freaking Troy Franklin in the end zone. Broncos up 7-0. And after that, it was all she wrote. Bills win 31-7. This game to me really, really, really showed the lack of talent on this roster. Like if you had a legitimate number one tight end, a legitimate number one running back, you had another receiver that was actually catching balls. I mean, Marvin Mims and Cortland Sutton, okay, but Cortland Sutton dropped some key passes in this game. Like, you could probably you keep up with the Bills. You could probably beat the Bills. But Bo Nix went 13 of 22, 144 yards, one touchdown. And like, I think it was like, what, 60 or 70 of those yards, of those 144 yards, came off one pass play. What were your thoughts of that game, Mohammed?
Yeah, I mean, the frustrating part is I know we were playing the Bills, but the Broncos actually kind of kept it close for a while, Eddie. You know, it just we just couldn't get over the hump for some reason. You know, but the defense kind of kept the game close, and I was thinking the defense is going to eventually get tired, so we have to score points. Just didn't happen. You know.
Well, a lot of people were upset about the Broncos losing their first playoff game in like 9 years. Me, I wasn't. I was like, okay. I'm like, they already exceeded my expectations. They got a winning record. They swept the Raiders. They beat the Raiders for the first time in years. And they made the playoffs. Like, I picked the Broncos to lose that game, but I was like, I don't care. The Broncos made the playoffs with a less talented roster. Like, people want to talk like, oh, you know, this team is secretly full of, you know, really good players. I'm like, no, it's not. I mean, you got Cortland Sutton and Bo Nix. That's pretty much the offense right there. That's it. You don't have no tight end. You have no running back. You have no wide receiver. I mean, maybe Marvin Mims you can call wide receiver too. And then defense, you know, it's not so much the players. It was more of Vince Joseph scheming. It's like he's still having those problems to where he's like, you know, he coaches too conservatively or he doesn't coach aggressively enough. And it's just like, dude, come on. He doesn't make adjustments. And you're just like, I mean, to me personally, I hope I'm wrong on this, Mohammed, but even if we put more talent on this defense, I don't think the issues are going to be 100% solved. Because if Vance Joseph doesn't learn how to freaking, you know, make halftime adjustments, you know, stop playing so much zone coverage and start playing more man and blitz some more. Like, he didn't, like, it was funny because at the beginning of the season, he blitzed a lot. Towards the end of the season, he didn't blitz as much.
Yeah.
And so that's your freaking golden goose. Why are you not doing it so much? So it was really aggravating to me. But overall, the season to me was a success. 10-7, made the playoffs. Yes, you got bounced in the first round, but now you can go in the offseason feeling high, feeling good. You found your rookie quarterback, put talent around him, and you're going to be going deep into the playoffs next year. What are your final thoughts on the season, Mohammed?
Yeah, Eddie, I mean the ending was kind of disappointing for me, definitely. Um, Somehow I believed we would be able maybe to beat the Bills, but it's like you said, Eddie. They had us what, winning 5 games. We won 10.
5.5.
Yeah,
That was
5.5,
Vegas's total for us, 5.5.
exactly. And we won
We
10
doubled
games.
that.
Went to the playoffs for the first time since the Super Bowl 2015. Since that season,
I'm eager to see what everybody's preseason predictions are next year. I can't wait until next July and August to see what people's predictions are for the preseason for the Broncos, especially whenever they add talent to this roster. Are they going to still be, you know, like, oh, the Broncos ain't going to do nothing this year. They're going to win 6 games. Or are they going to be like, oh, the Broncos are a serious threat and people have us going to the playoffs and maybe possibly winning the division?
they're gonna
I can't
show
wait to
us
see that.
winning 7 or 8 games. I don't see them giving us more than that, Eddie. Maybe a little bit, 7, 8 game stops.
Maybe. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm excited to wait, or I'm excited to see what they say. Guys, if you're watching, please like, comment, subscribe on this video, and also get your comments in, and we'll get to them tonight. The next thing I wanted to talk about, Muhammad, I just wanted to touch on this because we're already at 55 minutes. It took us almost an hour to get through the season recap. Aaron Jones, the running back from the Minnesota Vikings, has been linked to the Denver Broncos. What are your thoughts? Would you want to bring in Aaron Jones or no?
Eddie, like I want us to concentrate, as far as like the running back, to concentrate on the draft. But if we can get somebody who's going to come in for a year or two on a cheap deal, why not? I mean, Aaron Jones is a decent running back. He runs really hard. He did get hurt on 2023, I believe. He was out for like a 5-6 games, something like that. But he played pretty well last year for the Vikings. Yeah, I mean, if he's gonna come in and it's not gonna be a lot of money, why not?
I don't know. I'd say pass. Like, I mean, I know Williams is gone. Like, he's not coming back. McLaughlin's still going to be here. He's still on his rookie deal. Estime's still on his rookie deal. Like, I feel like next year we're going to see more of Estime, honestly. And knowing Sean Payton, he's going to want that scat back. He's going to want a receiving back. That's what Kamara was. Like, Kamara, the guy he drafted at running back is like that scat receiving type back. And he wants a guy that can run the ball, but also catch the ball out of the backfield. And, I feel like they're going to keep McLaughlin and Estime are going to be there. Estime is probably still going to be your third string back. And I think they go into the draft to get, they could possibly get a Genty. If not, I've seen a few other names pop up on that list that are scat backs that they draft, and that's going to be their future at running back. And it's going to be a 1-2 punch between the guy they draft in the draft and McLaughlin, with an occasional Estime in there. Like if they need it's like 3rd and 2 or something, and they need short yards, and they can give it to, Estime to just pound the yardage and get there. I think that's what they're going to do. I'll pass on Aaron Jones. I don't want an aging running back. Running backs to me, once they hit I hate to say this, once they hit 28, 29, they're all used up.
Yeah,
I
agree.
he got used hardcore in Green Bay, and he got used hardcore last year in freaking Minnesota because that's what helped Sam Darnold. Like they had Aaron Jones back there, and they were giving it to him, and he was just boom, 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 pounding it, taking a beating to help Sam Darnold. That's why Sam Darnold, I think, had such a good season. So I'll pass personally on Aaron Jones, but that's just me. Let us know in the comments, guys. Well, what do you think about Aaron Jones? Would you guys sign him? Would you pass? Let us know in the comments. The next thing I wanted to touch on was a player that spent a couple of years, I think 4 or 5 years in Denver, Mike Purcell. You might know him as famously as the defensive guy that came off the field in 2022 and was screaming at Russ on the sideline during the Rams game. But he officially announced his retirement today, and he signed a 1-day contract with the Broncos to retire a Bronco. Muhammad, what was your gut reaction to that?
That's pretty cool. I mean, I think he went to the Patriots or something for a year. Came back, and now he's retiring. Every time you see a team, a player coming back to retire, and signing, with their team, it's always an exciting time. I wish him the best. Whatever he decides to do after this. But yeah, definitely.
Me too. Mike Purcell was a good defensive line guy. He spent a lot of years in Denver. And honestly, out of everybody on the team in 2022, he was the only one to have the guts to stand up to Russell Wilson. Not really stand up to him, but, he was the one that had the guts to be like, he finally snapped after that Rams game. And to me, that's the kind of fire I wanted to see out of Russ. That was the fire I wanted to see out of Russ. And it was pretty sad that, it came out of a freaking defensive line guy to the quarterback, but whatever. I wish him best in his future. I hope whatever he decides to do, he does good at it, and wish him the best. The next thing is special teams coach. Now, I was on Twitter today, Muhammad. I want to get your take on that, or what your thoughts are. It seems like, based on what I'm seeing and what I'm reading and watching, Rizzi, The guy that was the special teams coach in New Orleans was Sean Payton, who Sean Payton hired in New Orleans, and he was the interim head coach or the interim head coach last year after Dennis Allen got fired. Is like I say probably about 95 to 97% a thing that he's going to become the Broncos' new special teams coordinator. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, Eddie. I read the same thing. I think after the Super Bowl, he's probably going to be our special team coordinator. Hey, whatever Sean Payton wants, just give it to him. Players, coaches, whatever he wants to for this team, I think you should give it to him. So, I think that's who's going to be our next special team coach.
Um, yeah, I agree. The thing is, though, is that he had one of the top special teams units in New Orleans with Rizzi. Sean Payton did, and I mean, a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, well, the whole free kick field goal thing against the Chargers, the special teams blundered. The Chiefs game where the line just collapsed, special teams blunder. Like whenever they fired, I forgot what his name was. Whenever they fired their special teams coach this year, I don't think those were the reason. Maybe they had something to do with it, but it was more along the lines that the guy they had their special teams coach, and then they had a guy above him that was actually calling the special teams plays and running the special teams, and he retired because of medical reasons this year, and that's why Sean Payton fired him. And Sean Payton probably knew Rizzi was going to be available, and he's going to bring him in. And this special teams is going to be one of the top special teams in the unit. Now, imagine if you I think last year the Broncos offense was top 10, the defense was top 5. Now, imagine if the special teams is top 10. This team is going to be deadly next year. Top 10 special teams, top 10 defense, top 10 offense. No one's going to be able to stop us. So, but that's my thoughts. I think Rizzi is going to be the new special teams coordinator, and I hope he is, and he makes the special teams better than what it was this past year. But last subject before we get out of here, Mohammed, you wanted to touch on it tonight. All the coaches that have been getting hired by other teams from the Broncos. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's very concerning. It's kind of pissing me off, to be honest with you. I'm like, we finally made the playoffs. We finally got the team together where we can actually start winning, and then they're gonna come and start taking our coaches. I'm like, why? Why are you taking our coaches? Go to other teams. I mean, it might be a little selfish for me, but I'm like, come on, dude. Like, what's going on here?
Well, Mohammed, I'm not trying to tell you you're wrong because you're not, but when you're a bad football team and your coaches suck and your team sucks, like no one wants coaches from your team. I mean, you can maybe say Vic Fangio. Like once he got fired, it was like teams were wanting Vic Fangio because he's a great defensive coordinator. He sucks as a head coach, great defensive coordinator. But whenever you're a team that makes the playoffs and you're good, and you better start getting used to this. Is all I can say. When you have good coaches and your team's good and they're making the playoffs, winning Super Bowls, winning playoff games, you're just going to lose coaches. Teams are going to be like, wow, that guy did a great job with the Broncos defense or the offense or the special teams or whatever, the quarterback coach or the tight ends coach or the DBs coach. He did really good. Let's break him in and make him our DC or make him our head coach. That just comes with the territory when you're good. Like, I'm not going to be surprised next year. Like we talked about it this year that, Vance Joseph had a top 3 unit, defensive wise. And we were talking about Vance Joseph taking a job. He had 2 interviews. He had one with the Raiders and the Jets. He didn't get hired for either. But if this defensive unit is really, really good next year, and they're another top 5 unit after getting more talent on this thing, and Vance Joseph actually figures out how to freaking adjust,
he's going to be gone.
And their defense is really good next year. I would not be surprised if someone poaches Vance Joseph next year. Now, me and you both have said we're fine with that.
Yeah.
But we say that, but if he turns this defense into a juggernaut and he's actually doing everything right, he's making adjustments, he's doing the right things, and he turns into a really good DC, then we're going to be sitting here like, no, don't take our DC. Don't take Vance Joseph. And some teams are going to take him and hire him as their head coach. That just comes with the territory with being a good football team. It sucks. I hate it, but
as long as we're winning, I really don't care. The team. Like I'm worried that it might affect the team a little bit. That's my fear. but I hope that's not the case.
Here's the comfort you can take in that though. Whenever a team like that loses a head coach, or not loses a head coach, but loses an OC, loses a special teams coordinator, loses a DC, or loses any coach on the team, you can take solace in knowing that if the team is good, the coaches that are on the team are good. That's a credit to the head coach. He's the one that hires those guys. Like Sean Payton's not going to go anywhere. Sean Payton's going to be with the Broncos until the day he retires from coaching, which honestly, seeing Pete Carroll is starting to coach again at 70 freaking 3 years old and signing a 3-year contract, he's going to coach till his mid-70s. Bill Belichick, I mean, he's probably going to wind up coaching, whether if it's college or the NFL. He's like, I think 72. He's going to coach until like his mid-70s. Sean Payton's only, I think he's going to be 61 this year. He's probably going to coach for another 13, 14 years. And he's going to probably stay in Denver for those years. He got like as long as Bo Nix is here and Sean Payton's here, he's probably not going to leave.
Yeah.
And whenever he does leave, it's going to be to retire. And as long as you have Sean Payton, who can actually hire the good coaches, regardless of what that position is, whether it's DC, OC, special teams, quarterback, DB, whatever it is, just take solace in knowing that Payton's going to get it right. He's going to find the right guy for the job.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look at Kyle Shanahan. Like, Kyle Shanahan's been there since 2017. He's already went through, I think he's on like his third or fourth freaking DC. And that defense has been top tier every year, except for this past year. I mean, they really weren't that great, but they had a lot of injuries too. So, but that's just like even Spags. Like, you don't think Spags has probably gotten some calls? I mean, granted, he probably said no because he wants to stay in KC and win Super Bowls, but he's probably gotten offers for head coaching jobs, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, but that's just the nature of the beast. Like, as long as we're winning, I trust Sean Payton to bring the right head coaches in. If we lose a DC or OC or whatever, I trust Sean Payton to bring the right guy in for the job as long as we keep winning. So, but that's it for us tonight, guys. Like I said, if you guys want to like, comment, subscribe on this video, also hit the bell notification to know when we go live. If you guys want to get your comments in, we'll get them next time. And Muhammad, it was great talking to you again tonight, man.
Likewise, Eddie. We're gonna be good, man. I can't wait for the free agency to start.
Neither can I. I got 2 more months, less than 2 months until free agency starts. I think it starts like March. What is it, 10th or something? I can't remember off the top of my head the exact date, but that's it for us tonight, guys. We'll be back next week to talk more Broncos football with you guys. But until then, peace.